There we go. All right, Mayor. Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, we're several minutes after the starting time, and glad to have everybody here. And we've been having some good times already. But now, without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Carl. And so, Mr. Jones.
Now we're going to get serious.
You're on now. Very serious.
It won't. Hey, don't worry, it won't last. So, as I think I mentioned last time, we've got chapter 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And 8, 9, and 10 are not as flamboyant as the early chapters or the later chapters. But don't miss what's in them. They're a little bit less flamboyant or provocative. They seem to be just kind of routine, but they're about relationships. And there's some real gems of principles to gain from these. And we're in chapter 8, and we got about halfway through, but I just want to go back to the beginning and go through this chapter, because where we pick up, it kind of picks up in the middle of a thought. And I want to make sure we know what he's talking about. So if you remember in chapter 8, he said he wanted them to know what God in his kindness has done through the churches in Macedonia. And they're being tested by many troubles. And they're tested by troubles and they're poor, but they're also filled with joy. And they overflow in generosity, rich generosity, which is an interesting combination, to be kind of under the gun and poor, and yet you're joyful and you want to give. And maybe the two are connected in some way. He says they gave not only what they could afford, but far more. And they did it of their own free will. And yes, Mike, there is free will in the Bible. There it is right there. Of course, it depends on how you define it and how you use it, but those are the two words. They begged us again and again for the privilege of sharing in the gift for the believers in Jerusalem. They even did more than we had hoped. For their first action was to give themselves to the Lord and to us, just as God wanted them to do. Okay, they gave of themselves as much as their money. So this is where Titus comes in, and the reason I wanted to go back to here, because Titus is going to show up at the end of the next part of the chapter. So he urged Titus, who encouraged your giving in the first place. Apparently, he was the guy who kind of got them going on the helping other people out and giving, even though they're poor and struggling. They probably encouraged them that there's joy in that. To return to you and encourage you to finish the ministry of giving. Remember, they kind of started something and maybe lost interest a little bit or slowed down or whatever. And so Paul's kind of gently, and a couple of times not so gently, reminded them to finish what they started. Since you excel in so many ways, your faith, your gifted speakers, your knowledge, your enthusiasm, and your love from us. Remember 1 Corinthians, we had the whole section on spiritual gifts in the love chapter and how to use tongues and everything. So they were a very gifted, charismatic type of church. But he's saying you have gifts and you have love, which you learned from us. And I want you to excel also in this gracious act of giving of yourself and giving of money. He doesn't mention the word money down here eventually. I'm not commanding you to do this, but I am testing how genuine your love is by comparing it with the eagerness of other churches. Oh, Paul, he's pulling the guilt trip on him. I don't know if that's that good of an idea, but see, there are a lot of people who believe that the New Testament is inspired, because Paul said that the Old Testament writings, the writings were inspired. He never said that the writers were inspired or they were inspired by God, but the writings themselves were God-breathed, or it's actually not inspired, but God-breathed. But I don't know of any place that really directly says the New Testament writings are inspired in the same way. So that's kind of for you to sort out and figure out. However, I'd say the church at large believes that these writings are just as good and just as important as the Old Testament, maybe even more so. And maybe at least God had his hand in it. It's just hard to believe that all this stuff came about and it was preserved and it's helped so many people and it's just accidental. So anyway, at times Paul seems to act like a a little more human than he would if God was controlling all the verbiage. His personality's in there, his history. Don't forget he was a Pharisee. I think that leaks through a few times. Don't you think, Mike, that his Phariseeism kind of comes out in some of his things he says, even though it's all very good and helpful. Just kind of a few things like that. But anyway, he's saying if you compare yourself with the other churches, you'll come up to the standard here. So you know the generous grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor. He gave it all up, so that by his poverty, by becoming a human being and leaving his prominent place in heaven or out there in God's realm, so that his poverty, he could make you rich also. And obviously not rich in money, although it could include that for some people, but the kind of spiritual poverty and spiritual richness. Here's my advice. It would be good for you to finish what you started a year ago. Okay, he's kind of on this theme. This is apparently on his mind and why he's writing to them. He wants to, a little bit of guilt trip, a little bit of encouragement. He just wants to, wait till you see what he gets to down here. He says, hey, don't let me down. I've already boasted about you guys, so you better come through. We'll get to that eventually further down. Last year, you were the first ones who wanted to give, and you were the first to begin doing it. They were first to want to, and they were the first to start doing it. And a lot of people go, oh yeah, I want to do this, I want to help, and then they don't do anything. And these folks, they stepped up and they started doing it. Now you should, but they have a little problem finishing. So now you should finish what you started. Let the eagerness you showed in the beginning be matched now by your giving. Give in proportion to what you have. Whatever you give is acceptable if you give it eagerly. Okay, it doesn't have to be a lot. It's why you give, it's how you give, what's going on in your heart. And give according to what you have, not what you don't have. Don't worry about if you don't have a lot, that's fine. Of course, I don't mean your giving should make life easy for others and hard for yourself. In other words, don't give away everything and live in poverty and somebody else is living better. He's not asking for that. I only mean that there should be some equality. Right now you have plenty and can help those who are in need. Later, they will have plenty and can share with you when you are in need. Remember, there wasn't any welfare programs or Social Security, nothing like that. You were kind of on your own, and things go up and down in life. And the insurance and welfare was who you know and whether you're going to give to each other. And this is the beauty of Christianity, because up till now it was every man for himself, and it was a very greedy, selfish place. But now you have this, that's why Christianity grew. There was this agape love where you give, you help others, you love them, and you put others higher than yourself, and you invest in other people at your own expense. That's people in the ancient world go, what are you talking about? You get what you can, and for you and your family, and to heck with everybody else. So this agape love was really a new idea. In this way, things will be equal. Give some, take some, you get helped, and you help people out. I don't know about you, but I would rather help people than get helped. I went through a season where we had to get helped a lot. We had illness in the family and out of work and different things. And man, people came through. It's very humbling. And I thought, man, I want to get out of this. I want to get on track, make more money or be better off, and then I'll help people. And so I get to do that today. But maybe it was good I went through that first to know what it's like to be really under the gun and struggling. When someone comes along and helps, you really appreciate it. And then you have a reason for helping others. So I'm sure you've been on both ends of that. Okay, and as scripture says, I think this is where we ended up last week. As the scripture says, those who gathered a lot had nothing left over, and those who gathered only a little had enough. And he's referring to what happened out in the desert with the manna. Remember, they had manna burgers, banana bread. They had some banana bread, I think, and and quail and different things. Well, anyway, God said, just gather enough to get you by, for one day at a time. And people would gather a whole bunch, and it would turn sour and rotten, and then they wouldn't have much at all. And the picture is just go one day at a time and let God take care of you each day, and don't try to get your own security going. That doesn't mean don't get a retirement program, especially in this crazy world, but don't depend on it either. You got retirement. God's warned me about this. Don't depend on that retirement, Carl. That becomes your trust. I'll pull it. I'll pull it out, and then you can find out who you're really dependent on. So I don't. He waited a long time to trust me with a lot of money. Apparently, I wasn't worthy of it in my 40s. But anyway, the principle is just go get what you need, and God will take care of the rest. And if you get too greedy trying to store it up and not trust in Him, it's going to turn bad on you. So this is where we pick up. Oh, anything before we start out? He goes on and says, but thank God He has given us Titus. Okay, that's why I went back through all that, because Titus was the one who first got them going on giving and spent time with them and all that kind of stuff. So anything on that first 15 verses? Comment or thoughts or anything before we move on? Should I go back and read through it again? Just kidding. Just kidding. Hey, Marcos. How you doing?
Sorry, I'm just running. I just it was hot out there. I just got fresh, so I'm here.
Okay. Okay, if no comments, then we'll go on verse 16. But thank God, based on everything that he's just said above, he has given us Titus. He has given Titus the same enthusiasm that I have for you. That I have. So Titus comes along, probably a younger guy, and Paul's going, wow, thank God for Titus. I'm not the only one trying to help these folks. Titus got really on board, cared about them, spent time with them. He has this enthusiasm for them. Titus welcomed our request that he visit you again. So Paul probably wrote to Titus, said, hey, you've already started with these folks. Can you go work your magic again and get them enthusiastic, and whatever you did before, can you do it again? And Titus says, sure, I'm happy to do it. I would love to do it. So he's quite a guy, probably, because that he didn't just get on a bus and travel or airplane. He probably had to travel ways to do that. In fact, he himself was very eager to go and see you. We are also sending another brother with Titus. So there's somebody else going with him, and I don't think he ever names who it is. Maybe it was Timothy, just a guess. I have no reason to, except that the two books are next to each other in the New Testament. All the churches praise him as a preacher of the good news. I don't know if they're talking about Titus there or the brother that's going with him. Could be either way. He was appointed by the churches to accompany us as we take the offering to Jerusalem, a service that glorifies the Lord and shows our eagerness to help. See, this is in a way, this is socialism, and I don't mean the Marxist socialism, but socialism, where you're in a society, you're helping each other. When you're down, they help, and when they're down, you help, and everybody doesn't get greedy and see how much they can make so they can be impressive. It's a good kind of socialism, if you will, and it's caring about each other. Jesus taught that, to give, you freely you've received, so freely give, and Paul always promoted that also.
Well, the difference between this probably the first effort at socialism is that it's volunteer. But socialism today in most countries is not volunteer.
That's right. That's a big one.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
A big difference. Where what the church was doing was governed by love.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Good distinction. And also, they allowed for you to have private property. Now they would encourage you to give of your things and share with others, but it wasn't required. It wasn't taken from you. Political socialism will go own everything, and that's much different. But what concerns me is people will talk about socialism, the concept, the idea of helping each other and everything, as if that's something bad, and it's not. If it's voluntary, but even if it's voluntary, it's still something we should instinctively or intuitively should know to do, to have some compassion, caring.
Well, it would come out of the fruits of
That's
the
right. It
spirit.
should.
wouldn't
Yeah, it would. It will. It will. The right kind of socialism will come out of the fruit of the spirit. And I mean the right kind. I'm not talking about political. I'm talking about caring about other people and making sure everybody's taken care of as much as we can. And even Paul put limitations on. He said, I don't want you to give so that you're poor and then they're doing really much better. Not talking about that, but watch out for other folks, you know, and see how you can help them, and don't just see how nice you can live and, oh, well, sorry, wish you was a little better, throw a few crumbs. Really help them. You know, they had things in common. It was communism. There's another word, that to be in a community of believers it is what they had in the early church, where they said they had kind of all things in common together. They pooled their resources and their stuff and everything. So you do have a lot of that, but it was a healthy kind. And we can do that. We don't need to do it politically, but we can do it as believers with each other. In fact, that's always the best way. As soon as you go to politics, it gets abused in some way. Even the welfare system, which is designed to help people, can get terribly abused. And it's always giving and helping other people on a local level, where you know the people and they know you, is the most efficient, best way to give. And frankly, if they didn't tax people so much, I think people would give more, and some of this the right kind of socialism would happen. But you get people in charge of things and they get greedy and want to take all your money. So
I would say that's the fruits of
you
the
think
flesh.
so? Yeah,
not
I'd
the
say it
fruits.
is. For sure, it is. But you know, we just got to put up with it. I can't stop it, but I can, after I pay my taxes, then I can see what I got left and say, okay, now how can I help? You know, balancing everything. I still need to retire. I got to go to an old folks home maybe someday, and not burden my kids. So I try to balance that out and help people in different things. And Mike and I have talked about that a lot. He was appointed by the churches to accompany us as we take the offering to Jerusalem, a service that glorifies the Lord and shows our eagerness to help. We are traveling together to guard against any criticism for the way we are handling this generous gift. Now, what do you think's going on there? We are traveling together to guard against, apparently, Paul, Titus, a brother or two, so we can handle this generous gift to the churches in Jerusalem. What are the dangers, do you think, that he's talking about there? They weren't taking a cashier's check.
No, right, yeah, and they were, you know, they didn't have that kind of thing those days. They just had money, and so you know, there's always people say, hey, if somebody's going by themselves, who's gonna keep them honest, you know, and thinking
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. So it's for the people together, not only the person taking the money, not that you couldn't trust Paul or Timothy or Titus, but Paul and Titus ought to take somebody so that they can't be accused of something. See, it's always smart. Like when my daughter was in junior high, and she'd have a sleepover, and one of her friends had to go home after it, and had to take her home. I said, "You're getting in the car with me." So I'm tired. I want to sleep in. No, you're going with me. I'm not taking this junior high girl over to her house by myself. So not there was any problem with me, but you don't know. You don't want to get in situations where you take this money and travel with it, and well, it's not as much as we thought, or somebody said it was. Multiple people that you trust, it guards the money, it guards the reputation, it guards yourself. Some people do have a problem with, well, I'll just borrow it and I just want to get by and I'll pay them back, you know, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of safeguards here. We're careful. We are traveling together to guard against any criticism, and I think criticism that would come from appearances, or even a temptation that we go through, for the way we're handling this generous gift. See, good principles in here, huh? We are careful to be honorable before the Lord, but we also want everyone else to see that we are honorable. Okay, he is concerned about appearances. Not so much that, oh, look at us, we're so great, but we want people to see the principles of how honorable people act honorably, and that will spread. Just like corruption will spread. If you start pulling stuff, other people will go, I want to get on this free stuff, and they'll start becoming corrupt. So this spreading honor among people so that they see how we do things, that's very important. Some really good principles here. Okay, thoughts before we go on? See how much good stuff there is in these normally dull passages. There's actually some good relationship things and principles going on.
Well, I think also he was trying to keep other people from becoming suspicious on their own. To be, some people are just naturally that way and think negatively, and
Yep.
would become suspicious, which would cause them to sin, in a mental way.
Yep. And there could be enemies of them that will see that situation and exploit it and start spreading rumors or something about it. And if you don't have others with you to verify it, you're vulnerable. So it's just part of being wise, doing it this way. And I think that's what he's saying. We are also sending with them another of our brothers. Is my time up?
I'm sorry, I was on the phone. It was my phone.
I heard a buzzer, like Jeopardy. Da, da, da. Okay, so we are also sending with them another of our brothers who has proven himself many times and has shown on many occasions how eager he is. I don't know who that is either. Maybe it's Barnabas, who knows? He is now even more enthusiastic because of his great confidence in you. So see how this works. People get enthusiastic because they see what's going on with people. And when you're trying to help somebody, if the people seem to be on board, it gives you encouragement. And then if you get more enthusiastic, it encourages them. I'll tell you, it can build up or wind down either way. So when you do your part, even though it's hard, sometimes you go, hey, these people aren't working with me. Like Paul, he's seeing that they're not finished what they start, but he didn't come down on them real hard. He's trying to wind up that encouragement in them and talk about Titus and how they're doing really well and they're gifted and everything, and try to keep it as positive as possible and get this thing going in a positive way again, because we're all human and we can get discouraged. Okay, so if anyone asks about Titus, say that he is my partner who works with me to help you. Okay, somebody might ask about Titus. He might have been a younger guy. And hey, it's not the Apostle Paul. It's not the official guy here. You got some sub guy. That's the problem with the hierarchy in the church. I want the real guy. But tell him he's a partner with me that works with me to help you. And the brothers with him have been sent by the churches, and they bring honor to Christ. So show them your love and prove to all the churches that our boasting about you is justified. Okay, see what he's saying? Hey, folks, come on, please come through, because I've already bragged about you. And I know you can do this. So I'm sending Titus to re-encourage you. Hey, this is all very human and realistic. I mean, this is just as real as anything in any family or church or situation. I mean, the New Testament's not sugar-coated. There's a lot of problems going on in here and interaction and everything, and he's giving it straight. But yet, weaved into it are the solutions in the midst of these struggles and difficulties. Pretty cool stuff. And remember, we read this stuff and we already got these principles. We're the recipients of this change of mind and heart and everything that's come down to us for 2,000 years. This is all kind of new stuff. what, really care about other people and act in their best interest and be careful how it looks? And, this is all kind of new stuff. So he's writing something rather unusual. We've all been schooled in it, and we are better off as the world and society is better off today than it was back then. I know it doesn't look like it, but it is. It's a lot better than it was back then. It was just totally brutality, and might makes right. We now have people at least get up on the world stage and at least mouth the words human rights, even if they don't mean it. I think a lot of people do, but you have people appealing to people's conscience that you got to watch out for other people and people have rights. And that's how our nation came together from the Renaissance and the Reformation and the Enlightenment period and all that stuff is after. I think this all comes out of Christianity, even with all its problems down through the Catholic Church and the mess they made of so many things. The truth kind of was embedded in it, and even though they abused it, when people read the New Testament and read these principles, the Holy Spirit speaks to them, and their lives change, even though there's a bunch of leaders that are doing it wrong. Thank God for the Holy Spirit indwelling people, and we're not dependent on a bunch of leaders who are, selfish and self-centered and all that stuff, which you've seen in the history of the church. It's a rather remarkable thing. So that's why we're in as good a shape as we are today, even though we got a long ways to go. Okay, thoughts on chapter 8? They went pretty fast. Well, you only had half to do, and we reviewed half of it. So anything on giving or the principles in there? Any thoughts you had before we start something new? It's more on giving, more giving stuff. So here we got a couple of chapters on giving and the activities around it and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I'll just mention that because I was talking with another fellow today about tithing and so on.
Yeah.
and of course, tithing is not taught in the New Testament. It's now actually Jesus taught it before the cross, pre-cross, because he was still teaching under the law, and the law provided tithing for the upkeep of the priests and the temple, but it's not carried on past the Gospels, and it's mentioned once in Hebrews about Abraham giving tithes to Melchizedek, but that was only a mention, and it was, I think Melchizedek was considered to be the personification of Jesus back in the Old Testament. So anyway, if anybody in this group thinks that tithing is still taught, it is not. And giving freely by your choice is all that Paul is talking about here. I mean, he could have said, "Hey, you need to pay your tithes," but he did not. Never mentioned it one time.
Right.
So tithing, you are not obligated to give a tithe to anyone or anybody, and give as the Holy Spirit inspires you to give.
Cheerfully.
Yep.
Yeah, and let me give churches a little break here. Most of the churches I've been in are not pushing Old Testament tithing in a requirement way at 10%. They will say, 10% is probably a good rule of thumb, maybe a good principle. If everyone would tithe, the church would be doing fine. And so use that as your guide. I would say is more what I've gotten in the churches I've been in, rather than you got to do it because the Old Testament says so. So, but there's a whole variety out there. There are those who are Old Testament law legalistic. You got to tithe because the Old Testament says so. There's plenty of that going on too.
That's what I came out from, and I think Donna will back me up on that.
Well, you guys were spiritually abused, so
no kidding.
more than I was. I actually had a pretty good church upbringing in Baptist, a little bit legalistic, but not like the horror stories I've heard from you.
So I
Okay.
remember. I remember. Can I share something?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I remember growing up in church, and always being told that if you don't tithe 10%, you're robbing the God.
Right.
Plus, the offering was included, separated from the tithing. So it was a demand, it was force,
Right.
and pretty much the law took place for the rest of my life until I came to this country when I kind of started experiencing the
Yeah.
tithing was not even forced to Christians until I married my wife and joined the black church, and it got worse. Actually, I went back 30 years later.
Wow.
So, but deep in my heart, I knew that I wasn't robbing God because of the tithing. It's something they brainwash you.
Yeah.
But because I kind of felt grace right away when I first came to this country, and
Right.
I kind of felt it about the stuff that you need to enjoy, and you're unconscious. Some things you do. I remember drinking for pain, but now if I have a drink, it's enjoyment, it's pleasure. It's
Right.
enjoyment. But my point is that when 7 years ago, my last month in the church that I was, from the church that we left officially, I haven't been in church almost 7 years, or member maybe in 8 years, and I feel way better and free and more blessed than ever before.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just amazing how it happens. But I remember the last week that I was at the church. I'm talking about a mini mega church here in Sacramento. The main bishop told me, "Hey, I want you to go count the money." And I'm like, "Why you want me to go count the money? Because I trust you." And I'm like, "Okay." So I was with another senior pastor there, and a deacon and a lady watching the counting of the money. So I was counting the money, and then he finished preaching or whatever he was doing on stage on that Wednesday night, and he came to the office where we were counting the money. I mean, these people had a safe. They still have a safe, bigger than a refrigerator. Crazy. So he came and gave a code sign to the main guy, the lead of the counting the money. And I'm like, "What's that code about?" He said he wants his cut before we put money in the deposit, and deposit money on the safe and count it to send it to Wells Fargo. I'm like, what kind of crap is that? So I knew that I was on my way out. I said, you know what? This guy is crook. He already stole $200,000 for his retirement and a whole bunch of stuff. So I left the church.
Yeah.
4 months later, my wife, faithful in the church, her whole life in the black church.
Yeah.
And then she said, "I'm following you. I'm tired of this."
Yeah.
So, we give with our hearts. We give as a charity. We give whatever. And Donna and Mike donated $300 to my friend. He said, all of my money was gone. I didn't have the money to buy more chemo medication for them to inject me because I had to buy the chemo medication back in my country.
Right.
So, and I said, "Hey, anybody else is aware of your situation?" He says, "Nobody, no church care, no my family care about it." It said 32 years later, you were blessing me through your friends and yourself. So, and Donna, when she gave me the donation, she said, "This is real tithing." I mean, this money went way far beyond anybody's imagination. And that's why we do now, as my wife and I, myself, we bless those who are in need by discernment. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I'm free.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't have
good.
to be concerned about tithing.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, that's proof that you're not robbing God, you're robbing them.
Right.
When you don't give. Besides, you can't rob God because number one, he already owns it all. And number two, he doesn't need it. So I think whatever giving we do, we need to give for ourselves. We need to let go of stuff. He doesn't need it. He doesn't need money to accomplish anything. He needs us we need to let go of it. And that's going to help us more than we're helping God by giving money.
I went to.
That makes
Go ahead.
You
I'm
know
sorry.
what? Oh, but no, I was just gonna say, and then you talk, Marcos, but I was just gonna say, the thing about giving directly is there's no overhead or middleman.
I like that.
Yeah, it's something
So-
that last week that you mentioned. It said God don't need our money. I went to sleep with that, and I've been sleeping with that in my head because I always had that. My whole family said, "You gotta tithe, you gotta tithe." And I'm like, "Listen, guys, I don't have to tithe to nobody. I tithe my time, You know, when people call me and they need help because they're about to kill themselves or something.
Yeah.
As my tithings, God super wealthy. You know,
Yeah.
and I told one of my friends, there's 600,000 galaxies in the universe.
Yeah.
Richard Ross said that I was watching him on YouTube at the gym.
Yeah,
He
right.
said, so how big he is and how small we think.
Right. Yeah. True. Very good. Hey,
So,
let's see. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Rhonda.
so at our local mega church in my community, I like to visit it. They have like really good music, and it's like a theater thing. But the pastor tells everyone that it's a commandment of Jesus to tithe,
Yeah.
and that there's also a promise of this blessing if you tithe.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I don't like about it is if you're an unbeliever and you go you finally, you know, you get your unbelieving son or whatever to come with you to church, and then the pastor says that it's like right away they say, oh, this is just a big game, you know, trying to get your money.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
It's really sad though. Nobody really speaks up and says, hey, that's not right. This church has like 5,000 members and nobody stands up and says, that's not right.
Yeah.
You know what?
Well,
Can I say something? And I'll be maybe the last thing I said. I say something. I call him personally on his 20-acre. He has a big, how you call, a barn full of luxury cars, exotic cars. And I called him, we talked 4 hours on the phone with him. And I said, listen, what you guys are doing is wrong. I've been in this church for 16 years. You call me at 3 a.m. Do you want me to advance my tithings 2 months ahead because you want to take a trip somewhere? Because you laid a mortgage, you lied to people. And guess what he said? He admitted everything that I said to him. I said, Marcos, I've been lying. I'm so sorry, but this is the way we do business in the Black community. And I'm like, boy, I said, you know what? And I was very fed up. But I did. What's your name? Let me see. What's your name? Rhonda?
Rhonda?
I confronted him. And he admitted it that he was wrong.
Yeah, there's a time for that.
Did he change?
And I left.
Yeah. Did he change? You don't know.
I don't think they have changed. They still doing the same thing because it's a system. It's a business. They still ripping people off. And that's the reason why I don't go there. It's 8 years later.
Yeah. Hey, Rhonda. So when they say give and you'll be blessed, it's probably more give and will be blessed. From their point.
Well, he has his
you
quotes
give
right
will
from
be
the
blessed.
Bible.
You give
my
will be blessed.
Yeah.
And we'll say that you're blessed, but you know, I don't want to judge anybody, but that motive's always there.
It's always
Well,
there.
and
Yeah.
the thing is, you look at the church and they really do have a lot of outreaches and help to the community and all these really good things that they're doing. And they'll say, we need the money for this, and they are using it for that, plus their stage and everything and their musicians.
And they're paying a PR person too to do that.
Yeah.
Nonprofit, so they keep all the money for themselves.
I feel like in this situation, they are like, I've been to some of their programs and like, they're doing amazing things, you know, for the Lord. But I just feel like if they really want to evangelize, that's the wrong way to do it.
My question is, are they really doing it for the Lord, or are they doing it for their church? You know, and most of these things are designed to keep growing their particular church, make it bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
you know,
He uses the metaphor that they're a lifeboat.
yeah.
Well, we just have to be careful. At some point you just go, this isn't for me. This isn't making sense. And you can confront them or challenge them or tell them why and then go. But God, you know, God does he can judge them properly. And usually there's a mixture of motives. There's often some good motives. They really do want to help people, but hey, you know, it's really we're really enjoying, we deserve this. You know, we're really helping people. So a little off the top for me is kind of makes sense. And they can even find a verse for that, you know, that even the ox, when he's turning the grain thing, he gets to eat some of the
Yeah.
stuff that falls on the ground. And so, you know, I don't know what goes through people's minds. You can only go by what you see, and you can make a judgment about what you see, but that's different than judging them and their motives, because you don't know what their motives are. So we just be careful not to judge motives, but you can make a judgment about what you see and say, that's not something I want to get involved in.
Yeah.
I'll have to leave it
Well,
there.
and at this church, they're like a couple $100,000 below their budget. So they're trying to pay
That'll always
for,
motivate.
they're trying to pay for all these outreaches and things that they have going. But
Well,
so I
that's
think
it.
the Lord, you know, accommodates people. Like, you know, we're all like human and like, you know, are tempted, and like we don't have perfect institutions. And
Yeah.
I feel like the Lord accommodates people. Even like I have Mormon friends. I know you guys might not like Mormons, but I really feel that God does bless them, even though they don't have the right theology or the right thinking. And that there's people within the church that are saved.
No, I know some. Yeah, they got some good folks in there, and they do some good things.
Yeah.
Just like the rest of us.
Yeah, I have Mormon friends, and I actually can talk some spiritual stuff more with the Mormon friends than I can people in the average church out here.
Yeah, I
so,
found
yeah.
that too.
It
Yeah.
can happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And,
I think like with us, you know, when we read the Bible and we're struggling and all this, it's not about like having all the right answers.
No.
And if none of us have them, and no church has them. So I try to look at the people and how they're treating each other.
That's good. That's
yeah,
excellent.
yeah.
That's
Again,
excellent.
it goes back to agape love, and you know, and who's operating in agape love, you know, and of course I also listen to what a particular church or group teaches, and if they don't teach grace, then you know I don't give them much leeway.
Right. Okay, fair enough. Okay, let's look at chapter 9 now. We still got some time left, so we'll start on this. I really don't need to write to you about this ministry of giving for the believers in Jerusalem. Okay, that kind of goes along with what he's been saying. He gave them plenty of commendation and encouragement and appreciated them. And he really doesn't need to write to them about this, about giving to them, but he did because it is helpful. He didn't have to. I think he's saying, you know, you guys would have done okay anyway, but I just want to keep you on track and have you do really well. Perhaps that's what he's saying. For I know how eager you are to help, and I have been boasting to the churches in Macedonia that you in Greece were ready to send an offering a year ago. In fact, it was your enthusiasm that stirred up many of the Macedonian believers to begin giving. So this stuff does spread, and he's giving them a lot of credit here. You know, you guys got going early, you wanted to, and then you did it, and it spread and it stirred them up. He seems to have come and said, let's keep going with this. You've lost your initial enthusiasm, but I want you to know you had it, and that's what's important. But I'm sending these brothers to be sure you really are ready, as I have been telling them, and that your money is all collected. Okay, so it's kind of I love your enthusiasm. You're in on this. Your enthusiasm is spread to others, but have you gotten organized? Have you collected the stuff? Do you have it ready? Are you ready for this? We're going to come there and we're going to take these funds, and you got to be ready. You can't just think it's a great idea. So I think he's concerned. They you know, the Corinthians were kind of a little bit immature and a little bit, you know, they came out of the world and they got all these gifts and they got some things backwards and wrong. And you just read 1 Corinthians. So he's without being mean to them, I think he's cautiously saying, hey, are you ready for this? Because he suspects that they're not quite as ready as they claim to be. So he's just checking up on them. Make sure you're ready, as I have been telling them, and that your money is collected. I don't want to be wrong in my boasting about you. So here he goes again. He's a little concerned about his claiming these great things about him, and they don't come through. So he's kind of working the back channel here, make sure things happen well. And it's Paul's worried about his own reputation. I doubt it. His reputation's already shot. It's kind of like Paul Young. And I think he wants things to go well for the church and for Christianity. And as the good news spreads, he doesn't want start negative things about the gospel and about giving and about Christians. So he's just shoring up finding the holes in the dam and fixing them up so that he won't have a dam burst.
He knows these Corinthians are a bunch of clucks. I mean,
Yep.
they're the most fickle church of the whole New Testament era. Yeah.
They are the most charismatic and gifted, and yet the most fickle and goofy and gone the wrong direction. And I mean, read 1 Corinthians. It's quite an adventure. And that often is with people. A lot of people are very gifted, very talented, very loving and caring, and yet they're all over the map and staying organized and not getting off track. And it's just kind of human nature. You got another person who's very, very stable and quiet, and they got their act together, but they don't necessarily accomplish a lot of over the top amazing things. They just are steady state. And it's probably good that we have all kinds of people in the church. You need some very stable people who don't make a lot of noise, and they don't seem to be flamboyant and attracting people and soul winning and all that stuff. They're just giving and keeping things stable. And then you got the ones that are going out there all over the map, and they're creating a lot of activity. Okay, so it's kind of an
I'll tell you who they remind me of. They
Who?
remind me of me back when I was in the church business.
There you go.
Yeah.
Your heart was really in it, but you didn't know what you were doing.
No joke.
Well, that's all of us when we're young. Lots of zeal and not a lot of wisdom. I mean, and I go, what is with this life? Now that I got the wisdom, I'm losing my zeal. It's like I could become a couch potato in a hurry. So now that I've retired, this is getting to be a real challenge. I gotta make sure I keep doing stuff, because I could just kind of kick back and read books and not do much. So, one thing I was going to mention to you about the finance thing, I'm working with a church now that instead of, they got financial problems. So instead of getting a big fundraiser and have pony rides or put guilt trips on people to give more or, whatever, I suggested that they live within their means. So cut expenses. And that means they're going to have to cut, there's 2 staff people, and they're going to have to cut each of them are half-time. They're going to have to cut each half-time person down to quarter time. And that's quite a move. And both of the staff people are willing to do that. They can survive. And I said, you do that, and you're going to be able to survive long term, because when you spend more than you make, it's just not good. You're dipping into savings and that kind of stuff. So I was really proud of them that they're willing to do this, and it makes sense, and they're moving in that direction. That's going to stabilize things, and I think it will bring about more success and growth in the long run for them. So that's a better solution than we need more money. Where are we going to find it? How are we going to milk it out of these people with guilt or pony rides or something? Like Mike said, he could get a successful church going in a hurry. It just would be the wrong, doing it the wrong. He'd be doing it the wrong way to do it, but it's not that hard.
It sounds like religious taxation.
Yeah, there you go.
It really does, to put more pressure, like, okay, we spent this money now, or we overextended, so now we need more
That's
of
right.
your money.
There you go. And so this church isn't doing that. I'm very proud of them. They're a really fine group of folks. Yeah, instead of the Boston Tea Party, it's the Jerusalem Guilt Party. Okay. So, but I'm sending these brothers to you, brothers, to be sure you really are ready, as I have been telling them, and that your money is all collected. I don't want to be wrong in my boasting about you. We would be embarrassed, wouldn't we? Not to mention your own embarrassment if some Macedonian believers came with me and found that you weren't ready after all I had told them. So he's putting their reputation on the line. He's doing kind of two things. In one way, he's commending them. You guys have your act together, but he's also kind of reminding them, if you really got your act together, you got to come through. And he is saying he believes them. He said, I already boasted about you, but make sure you're ready. Okay, you kind of see the pinch Paul is in. We would be embarrassed, not to mention your own embarrassment. So we, Paul and Titus and them, and also you guys, you don't want to be embarrassed, do you? So let's do this thing. Yeah, this is very human writing. I mean, it's, like I said, you can call it inspired and God inspired and everything, but it's really Paul writing a letter and being real honest with them and dealing with practical issues. But there's plenty to glean from it. Inspired or not, however that works, there's plenty to learn from this. And it's just very good examples of good principles. So I thought I should send these brothers ahead of me to make sure the gift you promised is ready. So he's sending a entourage, a committee to go make sure things are together. All right. This must have been a pretty big deal. It's probably a pretty good sized bunch of money going to Jerusalem from Macedonia, or from, let's see, what, Corinth. That would be in over there down the peninsula a little bit in Galatia. I want it to be a willing gift, not one giving grudgingly or under guilt or getting fooled or whatever. I want this to be a willing gift. And I think he's saying, I know that it is, but I want to make sure it is. Remember this, a farmer who
Hey,
plants.
why don't we stop there?
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, we're getting close. That's fine. We'll pick up 6. Okay, any thoughts on that? We still got 5 minutes. And just what we did in chapter 9, you can see how this is moving on. The whole, this is 2 chapters about giving. Not just giving money, but giving of yourself and how the interaction of it, how it works, and how you got to watch out for this and that and the other thing. There's really a lot of good principles in here. If you read this over and over a bunch of times, we'd probably all learn even more about how to live a successful and wise and honorable life in Christ with other people. And that's what it's really all about. It's not just about us praying in our closet and glorifying God and going to church. It's about the interaction and how we do that and how well it goes. And you can see it's really interesting. Paul is feeling the tension of this could go off tilt. And it's not like he goes, oh, God's going to take care of it all and it's just going to happen. No, he's got to babysit it a little bit. And that's life. We have to babysit it when we raise our kids. You have to work on relationships. There's always a lot that we need to try to do. And even when you do, it still can go south. So that doesn't mean you don't trust God and you get all worried about it, but we need to pay attention to what we're doing, don't we? I mean, that's what Paul's saying here. He's paying attention to what's going on. He's overseeing this. He's encouraging them, but he's also saying, hey, I want you to watch for your blind spot of not finishing what you start. So those are really good principles, aren't they? Pretty good stuff. Any thoughts in the next 2 minutes? Who's got 2 minutes of ideas? Mike probably does. Hey, where's Bill? I knew somebody was missing.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot.
Yeah.
I don't know. Jennifer, has injured, so I don't know what's going on there.
Well, family comes first, that's for sure.
But he might have gone to sleep.
There you go. You gotta hook, when we go and visit him, we're gonna hook up some kind of a buzzer or a vibrator on the bottom of his chair. It'll wake him up. We can run, we'll hook it up the internet. We'll be able to
All right.
access it.
Good idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, you close it up, Mike.
All right. Well, it's good to have been with all of you today, and appreciate you being here. Carl mentioned the fact that I told him that I could build a church of 500, and I don't think he said it, but I've told him I could build a church of 500 in 5 years. And any of you guys want to do that?
The problem is I don't think I'd want to attend it by the time when you got done. So you
No,
wouldn't even want to attend it when you got done.
I know how to do what they
Yeah.
do out there in religion land, and but I have no interest in doing
Right.
it.
That's what I'm saying. If you did it, you wouldn't even want to attend yourself. So
Well, I mean, I could make it, plenty fun and plenty, exciting but I have no interest in that. If the Lord doesn't build it, it isn't going to get built. So.
well, I like what we got here.
I'm happy with you. Yeah, me too.
No, I like this group. This is a
The Lord
wonderful
brings,
group of
if
folks.
the Lord brings anybody else along, fine. If he doesn't, fine with me.
There you go.
It's his deal.
That's right. You got it. That's
Okay.
terrific.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, we will get off here now and hopefully see you all next week. And, send in your tithes and letters.
Gotta
Who
keep
was it?
this ministry going.
Yeah, there. I forget the preacher that used to
Pay
say
for the
that.
Zoom, huh?
Huh? What'd you say?
Pay for the Zoom bill.
Well,
Right.
that's Mike, that's the beauty of this. We don't have a building. We don't have overhead. We don't have anything to fight over. It's such a simple operation here.
Yeah,
It gets down to the purity of Christ and him crucified and sharing with each other. And there's nothing to fight over or worry about or have trouble with. So it's just a delight.
Right.
No guilt or obligation.
We don't even need that. No.
Mm-mm.
well, I try to
beautiful
guilt
thing.
some of you to come in and teach once in a while. I guilted Carl into it, so no, but I just always want to make sure everybody understands. If you have something you want to share, Lord put something on your heart. I don't care whether you're male or you're female. We don't have any of this. We don't allow women to speak in the church. we allow women to speak all they want. All right.
Yeah,
So anyway,
and Mike, one more
Yeah.
thing, it
Yeah.
wouldn't have to be the whole hour. If you have
Yeah.
something you want to share for
right.
10 minutes, you looked into something, you go, I want to spend 10 minutes tonight just sharing what I learned this week. We would love to hear that. I mean, really,
Absolutely.
it would
Yeah.
be terrific. It doesn't have to be the whole hour. It could be 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes. We don't care. Love
Right.
to hear from you.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. See you all next week. Take care.
Bye-bye.